Nobody knows the draft better than Jim Callis, and he's been doing it for a long time for MLB Pipeline, MLB.com, and he's kind enough to take some time and join us. It's a busy time in your life, Jim, as always, especially at this time because of all the young prospects that everybody's wanting to hear about. As you look at the 2022 draft, where do you view the strengths and where do you view the weaknesses?
Yeah, it's interesting, Matt, because a lot of years, the various demographics, college, high school, hitter, pitcher, there may not be a lot of separation between one and the other. And this year there definitely is. I think the strengths of the draft are, one, you've got four incredibly talented high school position players who I think are the four best players in the draft. And that's Drew Jones, son of Andrew, Jackson Holiday, son of Matt. There's a lot of bloodlines. Elijah Green, son of former NFL tight end Eric. And then Termarr Johnson, who doesn't have a famous dad, but he might be the best high school hitter in the last 20 years in just terms of pure hitting ability. And then beyond those guys, the college position player crop is super deep. There's a lot of first-round college bats. The flip side is the pitching's really hard to figure out. The college pitching is especially weak and difficult to kind of figure out this year because there's six guys who were potential first-round picks who either had Tommy John surgery before the season or after the season started. And then you have guys who had health questions who didn't miss the entire season, like a Blade Tidwell, Tennessee, or Kumar Rocker, who's coming back in independent ball, or Cade Horton, who might be the best of them all, but he was coming back from Tommy John. He didn't start pitching till the end of March and really didn't turn it on until June. So the college pitching crop is really, really tough to figure out. And, there are very few guys that don't have some kind of health question attached to them who are potential first-round college arms.
Way for us taking the best player available and taking for need for teams in general.
I mean, it's easy. I always say it's easy for me to say because I don't have to draft the players, right, and pay them, and my job depends on it. But I think 100%, especially in the first round, especially toward the top of the first round, you just have to take the best player. From the Tigers' perspective, they're going to take the guy they think is the best player. We can look back at last year. If you were just drafted purely on need, you'd be like, okay, Tigers are going to take a bat with the third pick, and they love Jackson Jobe. They saw Jackson Jobe great, and they're like, he's the best player. And even though we've got Skubal and Mize and Manning and Faedo and all these guys, and there's attrition with pitchers. They didn't say, well, look, we probably need hitters more than pitchers. They took the best guy, who in their mind was Jackson Jobe. So the Tigers make it a little bit easier because, those guys have been doing it for so long. You know what their style is. They're just going to take the best guy at 12.
The baseball draft is so unique. You're following these kids all the way through, whereas most fans do not. They can't. They don't follow college baseball like they follow college football and college basketball. When you look at a high school hitter or a high school pitcher, and we see how rapidly Riley Green was able to rise through the Tiger system and make the impact that he's making right now for the Tigers, what's the pause for college everyday players by many general managers? When they're looking at high school everyday players, what is the pause to take them in the first round?
I think the biggest difference between the two is that you have more track record with the college guys. You've seen them against better competition more often, almost, it feels like virtually every, well, I shouldn't say every, but most Division I ballparks and your top summer leagues, there's TrackMan, there's all kinds of data as well. So you're getting, if you have a college hitter, again, the pandemic throws us off. I was going to use Spencer Torkelson as an example. If we hadn't had a pandemic, you would have had, 700, 800 at-bats of Spencer Torkelson at Arizona State and 200 or 300 from Team USA in the Cape Cod League. And you would have seen him. Obviously the competition, it ebbs and flows depending on your plan, but you're seeing him against better competition at the college level. With Riley Green, who went in the first round, you just don't have as much comfort level. The showcase circuit is a lot bigger than it was when I started 30 years ago, but you're talking about maybe 75 or 100 at-bats against quality pitching on the showcase circuit. That might even be high. So it's fewer. Now that said, you know, obviously they took Riley Green and feel pretty good about it. He's number one on our prospect list right now until he graduates in the big leagues. But I think you're projecting those guys out further. It's I think it's easier with pitchers when you're looking at guys because you could see stuff and you can project stuff. And if the guy's throwing 92 when he's 18 years old, you can project maybe he'll be throwing 95 when he's older, and you can see how he spins the ball, and you know how that translates. I think hitting's the toughest stuff to project, Matt, because there are guys who hit in AAA who don't hit in the majors.
Last year, you obviously knew that there's a Marcelo Mayer that could have been there for Detroit, or a Jackson Jobe. You and your colleagues were kind of going back and forth. 2 years ago, Torkelson, a slam dunk number one. Who do you see as a possible 12? How about a few names that Detroit might have an opportunity to draft?
Yeah, it's not as easy this year. Like when they were picking one, like we pretty much knew that was going to be Torkelson. That was such a weird year because nobody was playing after March. And last year, I thought they might go with Meyer. But then I got some pretty good intel from inside organizations. They were all over Joe. This year, you can get some good intel, but you don't necessarily know who the first 11 guys are going to be.
Right.
So I come down. I think you hear a lot of college bats with the Tigers, and I don't know how much that might be people projecting from the outside. Hey, they need bats and college guys, whatever. But I think the second tier of college bats, where you're talking Gavin Cross, who's an outfielder for Virginia Tech, may or may not get there. Daniel Susac he's a catcher from Arizona, may or may not get there, but they both have a chance. I feel like Jace Young, the second baseman for Texas Tech, he's been banged up a little physically, and so I don't think people saw him as well down the stretch. So I think he's probably going to be available at 12. That was my last projection when I did it. I think Zach Neto from Campbell, who's a shortstop, who's like a career 400 hitter in college. I think he has a pretty good chance of being there. So I get those college bats are the most obvious, but then it's unclear as to whether there might not be, like we were talking about the pitching before, Matt, there may not be a single pitcher who gets picked before the Tigers. Brock Porter is probably going to be the first pitcher taken. And I think he could go to the Mets at 11. He could go to the Royals at 9, but Brock Porter might be there. And I think it could be like Jackson Jobe last year, where the Tigers are not going to be afraid to take a high school pitcher, or if they think he's the best guy on the board, just to take Brock Porter. And he's interesting. And then the other pitching name who I keep hearing with them, I think I touched on him earlier, was Connor Prelip from Alabama. I do think the Tigers are really intrigued by Connor Prelip, so that they could go that route also. And, the caveat is they pick 12th. There could be a couple guys we don't anticipate are going to get to 12 who do, and then Detroit's like, thank you very much, we'll take that guy.
Final thing before I let you go. How do the Tigers drafts, past drafts, impact this draft, if at all, do you think?
I don't think it does so much with them, honestly, Matt. Big league team has struggled this year. They're still picking they're still in the middle of a rebuilding process. But like I said before, it's kind of refreshing. Like the Tigers are a little bit easier to project in the mock draft, because I just think it's simply, who do they think the best player is? It's not going to be, hey, we just took, we've taken Torkelson and we've taken Riley Green in past drafts, so we want to go pitcher. Or we just took Jackson Jobe, so we can't take Brock Porter. We can't go high school pitcher back to back. There's none of that. I don't think the history matters too much. And we've seen, look, you've seen, I guess kind of perfectly in the last 4 drafts, if I'm doing this right, they've gone college pitcher with Mike Mize. They've gone high school hitter with Green. They've gone college hitter with Torkelson, and they've gone high school arm with Jackson Jobe. They're not one of these teams that, there are a lot of teams that don't want to take a high school pitcher in the first round, or there are a lot of teams that don't want to take a high school, or they want to take a college bat early because that's like the safest bet at the top of the draft.
All right. So fork to nose, who's a new Tiger at 12?
I think it's Young. I think he's a guy who, coming into the year, you thought was going in the top 5 to 7 picks probably. And like I said, I don't think he's done anything not to go high, except he's been a little banged up and some other guys have emerged. I'll stick with Jace Young. I do think if we see some deals cut, maybe a Jacob Berry or a Gavin Cross falls down to them. I think they might take those guys ahead of Jace Young. So if we have some deals cut, look out for them. But based on what I know right now, I'll stick with Jace Young.
You don't get thanked enough. It is wonderful, wonderful stuff. We love reading about it. I don't know how you keep it all straight. Somehow you do. You do this for so many teams throughout the country, and you do it every single day. Hats off to you, my friend. Thanks for all your time, and thanks for the knowledge.